Alright, so we're going to continue with where we left off yesterday. So just to quickly recap. So just to quickly recap, by this point we just created the, in our models directory, we just created the comments.js and the story.js, which this is the comments, that's what it's supposed to look like, and that's what we ask it to implement. And so now we want to create endpoints in our database that allows the users from the front end to query data into our database. All right? So go to your directory for this project, and for Catbook Workshop 3, git reset hard, so you reset your changes, and then git checkout step 2. So once you have typed this command, you have to make sure to recopy your MongoDB URL from mlab to copy that to db.js. So remember db.js in source, db.js, you have to copy the right link, because this link is not the right one, it's not going to work. So go to mlab, go to your Catbook DB, copy this link, and paste it right here, and then you change, make sure to put the right username, which one you created yesterday, and the password. So just to make sure everything is working as expected, run npm start. And you should see this server running on port 3000 and database connected. Is everybody able to see that? All right. Okay, so open API.js, which is in routes, in your routes folder, open API.js, and you should see something like this. This is what API.js looks like. So just, I'm going to quickly explain a couple things here. Remember, we had views.js, and views was for us to send HTML pages to the user. But with API.js, we're not sending pages, we're sending pieces of data. And because of that, it makes sense to have API.js in its own folder. Do you have a question? Oh, yeah. So that's why we created API.js. In API.js, we added multiple routes. And I'm just going to quickly explain two of these routes, which we're not going to implement. They're just here for the next lesson, which will be authentication. But one of the routes is who am I? And this is it's a user who, you're wondering what's your user object. That's later on. And user is getting someone else's user object. We're not going to implement that, and currently they just return anonymous, and we don't have to worry about that. What we're going to implement here is story here, and comments. So I already put some sort of comments, actual comments here to tell you what we're about to do. So, so scroll back to the top. So here's the first exercise. Here it says place the path here. You have to place the path for comments.js. We actually did this yesterday, and this right here is what the solution is supposed to look like. Constant comments equal required. Move back from this directory, go to the models directory, and load the comments, the comment.js. So here's the thing. Sometimes you will see we only put story and we only put comments. And JavaScript on its own already recognizes that comments and story are files of type JavaScript. So you could, if you want, you could put JS here and JS there, but you don't have to. Just to clear up some confusion. Okay? So once we have that, we're going to scroll down to the bottom here, where we have stories, and this is the first method the first endpoint that we're going to implement together. So what is this endpoint asking? This endpoint is asking to return all the stories inside of your database. So if you remember from yesterday, there was a method .find, which will give you an array of things that you're looking for. All right? So, so follow along with me. So to get all the stories, we're going to use the story model, which we imported right here. Stories.find. We're trying to find an array of things. So here's the thing now. If you put the first parameter in stories.find is what you want your parameter to match. Okay? If you want to find just give me everything, you just give it an empty object as a parameter. If you give it an empty object, it will just return everything. And once you have that, you have the callback function, and there is always an error, and then the next thing is stories. In this case, movie stories. But this is just an array of stories in our database. Okay? And finally, open the brackets. And inside of this function, that's where we implement the callback function. This is what the callback function is going to do. And what we want is to send the story. So in the parameters for the router, we have request and response. And response with the response.send, and we just put stories in it. So here's the thing though, right here we, remember when I was talking about making sure to check if you have an error, making sure to check if it's empty, and making sure that, and if it's not, that's when you actually implement that. That's why this is what you would do in the last else, but just for simplicity and not to get too cumbersome, we just send the stories. But this is it's not safe to do this. Right, just so you know. Well, this is a wrong. We don't send an empty response. That was a copy paste error. All right. So this is what the solution is supposed to look like. The next thing is, so we just implemented a get request, and then now we're going to implement a post request. I think we went over this, the difference between get and post, but I'll just quickly recap. When you send a GET request to a server, you're just getting something. It's kind of like asking for information. You're not going to modify anything within the database. But a POST request actually changes some stuff in your database, or yeah, that's what GET does. So there's something about POST and GET requests. So when you send both a GET request and you send a POST request, you could give parameters inside of your request. For example, say in our Catbook database, I clicked on the user, right? I will send a GET request to the database, and inside of that request, I'll put, to identify the user that I'm asking for from this server, I will put the ID of the user, which let's just assume that I have, okay? So I will send a GET request and put a parameter in that request and say, the ID of the user that I'm looking for is this, so give me that user. And those parameters, for GET requests, they appear inside of rec.query, it's just an object. And for POST requests, they appear in rec.body. So right here and right here. Hopefully that makes sense. We're going to do some code and it will make more sense. So right here, we're implementing a POST request. So I have a question for you. Since we're implementing a POST request, where will the parameters be? Will they be in rec.query or rec.body? What did you say?
Body.
Right. All right. That's correct. So that's what we're going to do. So this is kind of just like get your hands dirty. So this is what the solution is supposed to look like. We're going to write it right here. And so since we're asking for a story, we need to we're posting a story in the database, and the request itself contains contents in the parameters, which will be rec.body.content. We're adding that story into our database, so that's why we are first going to create the story with constant new story equals to new story. And with Mongoose, when we're doing saving documents in our database, this is what we're doing right now. We're saving a document. And currently, we don't have a creator ID. We just have it, we're going to leave it as anonymous. In the next lecture for authentication, that's when we're actually going to implement these other things. But for now, just leave it as a non-ID. And the creator name is anonymous. And the contents is what we get from the request. That's what this story is about. So rec, body, content. Finally, so now that we've created the story, we need to save it. We need to save it in our database. So here we say new story, and this is a method that the Mongoose model gives us. New story save. Inside of save, there's a callback function. And the parameters of callback is error, and the second parameter is story. So what save does, it will save it, and then if no error happens, it just returns the story. Return the story that you just saved. We're returning with the automatically generated ID. And right here, we're just going to check if there's an error, and then if there's an error, we log it. And this again is just just not to be too cumbersome, just to make our code simple. That's why we do this. But normally, you might have to check for more things in here. Check if there was an error, and then handle the error. Actually tell the user, oh, I got an error in our server. Maybe try again or something. And so finally, the last thing is send an empty response. So why do we send an empty response? We're going to send an empty response because we need to close this connection that we have. When you're sending a request to database, you open a connection. And while that connection is open, you're doing some form of transaction. And then when you're done with the transaction, you want to close the connection. If they want to make another request, they can make another request again. And staff, feel free to share if you have more better explanation. All right, so that's what we just did here. So now the next thing we're going to do is implement the get comments. So get comment is, imagine you have a story, and each story has some comments posted specific to that story. So to get all the comments that are specific to that story, that's what this get comments is asking for. So I already put the code to do this. We just have to replace the parameter. So I'll ask you again, where is the parameter? Is the parameter in rec.body.parent or rec.query.parent? What do you say? Query? That's right. Query. Parents. So what is this asking? This is saying, use the comment model, find every comment whose parent is the parent given in the parameter for this request. Find all the comments that are specific to that specific request. The parent is, remember, the parent is the ID of the story. Okay? So, and then there's a callback function. We just check. The callback has error and comments. We just send the comments. This, again, I'll keep reminding you, this is unsafe. You always have to check if there's an error. But here we're just doing it for not to be too cumbersome. So finally, we have the last thing, and this will be an exercise for you. So let's see. You have to implement the post comments. And if you're ready, just go for it. I'll wait a little bit and then start writing my solution. For post comment, imagine you have a story, you're looking at a story, you find it interesting, you're posting the comments. And the content of your comment is in the parameter content, among all the parameters you send in the request. Okay, so two things that you have to do is get the content and the parent, because this comment is specific to a story that has a parent ID. So find the parameter here, find the content. And then the next thing you do is save that comment that you just created, which is this guy. And the last thing is we send an empty response. Start with my solution. Should this be in body or query? Body? Awesome. So I have my solution here. Does anybody have a question? This is what the solution is supposed to look like. Anyone have a question? Yes?
Can you explain the difference between rec.body and rec.query again?
So, let's see. Yeah, go for it.
Basically, rec.query is if you are sending data when you do a GET request, the way the server accesses that data is under the field rec.query. And that just happens when you do a GET request. The data comes in through the rec.query field. So like if you do a GET request and you pass in an ID or a name, you'll do rec.query.id, rec.query.name. That happens only in routes where you're doing a GET request. If you're doing a POST request, on the other hand, which is a different way of passing in data because it's kind of a different design, stuff goes in rec.body. So if you want to post something and you're giving some data, like which story I'm updating or something like that, or which story, doesn't really matter. Basically, all that content you'll access will be in rec.body. It's just one's used for get, one's used for post.
I can add something. So query parameters also mean something as part of URL. So for example, sometimes you will see some URL, website.com/page.php, query equals something. And that's what query parameters are. So like if you Google anything, just like on the in the top, you see in the can we go back?
You can go back.
Alright. Yeah.
In the search, after search is question mark and Q equals. That's what query parameters are. They're actually part of URL. But for the post form, it's part of body of the HTTP request. So this is why it's different.
So I'll just iterate a little bit more. As you see here, there's Q equal URL plus query, and then you have this other thing. I don't know what it is. Google just auto-generate them. And you have multiple queries within this one URL. All right. Anybody else have a question? All right. So now we have to do a final thing. If you remember with db.js, we had to go back in app.js to make sure that we reflect the changes that we just added. So that's what we're about to do. So make sure you save, and then go into app.js and right below views, go write constant. It's also right here. Also right here, constant API equals to required. Routes API. So we're going into the route folder, taking out the API, which if I go back here, it's right down here, we exported that router, and we're taking it, placing it into this variable API. So once we have that, we're going to do something else here. We will add this line, app use /API, and API is just this variable that we just created. So what is this doing? This right here is saying, if in my URL, which would be something like localhost 3000, after the slash, anything that comes, if you have API, and then you would have another slash after that. Anything after the slash here is referring to endpoints that are inside of the API folder. So for example, if I do API, who am I, which is right here. So API 3000 /API /who am I. This will go into this specific endpoint and do whatever it's supposed to do here. So that's why we added this line here in our app.js. All right. So so now just run npm star. We're just trying to test if this is actually working. And type localhost 3000 /API who am I. Localhost, is this visible? Does everybody get this? You have JSON?
If you're at this point.
Your JSON might not look like this, but it will look very similar to this. Everybody raise your hand if you're at this point. Okay. Looks like a lot of people, so I'm going to move on. Yep, these are the solutions that we just did. So we're about to do the final step now. We are, now our backend, our server is ready to get all these new requests that we just implemented. However, our front end is not. Because we haven't implemented method in our front end to do those things. So type this command again, git research --hard, git checkout step 3. Git reset --hard, git checkout step 3. And you might don't need to do npm install, but just do it. Yep, it's up to date. And remember, you have to re-update your MongoDB URL again, because when you check out, it reverses the changes. So you just have to update that again. Go into db.js, paste the link, add a username, password, and run npm start. Everything is working. So let's see. Let's look at what our website looks like right now. Localhost 3000. This is what you should all have on your screen. Was everyone able to follow? So you should have this on your screen, and you have this thing where you can post new stories. However, if you click on submit, yeah, nothing happens, even though it clears the text. And even if you refresh, your stories aren't getting saved. And so we need to implement these things on our front end so that the changes, so we actually are able to save stories and post comments. All right, so let's see, let's go to the slides. Open feed.js. That will be in public. JS feed.js. And you can close all your server side windows. So this is what feed.js looks like. We already implemented this method story.model. We already implemented comments.model, so I'm just going to collapse it. So now there's a couple of new methods that are added here. Let's see. I just collapsed everything, and now we have these 4 new methods that you probably haven't seen before. All right? These methods, 2 of them are already implemented and fully functional. This one, new comment dump object. This method, let me just quickly see. All right. This method here is rendering a comment. It's like creating an additional element for comments in our feedback here. It will do that only if we actually have posts, and those posts actually, if we have stories, and those stories actually have comments. But currently there's nothing in our database, right? Actually, you could even go on your database and check your collection. It says none at this time, right? So, and then there's also this method here, new story dump object. It's simply creating this box right here. It's creating this thing here. It allows you to post comments. So there's 2 things that we need to look at. There is submit story handler. What is this? This method is saying, when I click on this submit button, I want to do this. And ideally, the submit story handler should tell the server, post this new story. All right? So this is what we have in submit story handler. Is everyone able to see this? And right here, we're posting a story. And remember how we're sending data to our database via that data which happens to be inside of either rect.query or rect.body. This is the data that we're sending. So we need to send data to post a new story. So if you go back to your API.js in your server side, and let's see, post story, there is a parameter that we need from post story. It's the content. So this content is what we're going to send to the server. Remember, the server is going to go through this route and take the content from the request. That's what we're about to send to them. So right here, write content, and it will be new story input dot value. Let me just quickly check my notes. Was it? Yep. So once we have the content that we're sending, we are going to add the endpoint right here. So if you remember from workshop, this is workshop 3, I believe. From workshop 2, before we had an API link somewhere, like at the beginning. We're not going to add that this time. We're simply putting the endpoint directly right here. And so my question is, what is the endpoint for posting stories? Does anybody want to take that? Or not? Yes? Good job. API story. However, something is missing here. You have to actually put the first slash before the API. Does that make sense to everyone? Why do we put API slash story? And also this, since this is a post request, it will automatically, because if you look at the in our server, or actually, what I was trying to say, in comments we have get comment and post comments. If we had a get story and post story, this will automatically go into the post one instead of going to the get one, because it's a post request. And then we post the story to the database, and then we have this line right here. So what do you think this line is doing? So I'll just explain it. This line, this is before, right? Actually, I think this is right now, because Node mod updates every time it may change. But anyway, if you click on submit, the line